There's a reason Generation X experiences the world differently, and it has nothing to do with nostalgia alone. People often point to the music, the movies, or the culture, but the real difference was shaped much earlier. Let's begin with something that would never be allowed today. Picture yourself at 6 years old, sitting in the front seat of your father's car. No seatbelt, no booster seat, just vinyl seats, warm air, and the road stretching out ahead. You're in charge of the radio, slowly turning the dial through static until you find the right song. But then something unexpected happens. Your father looks over and lets you steer. Your hands barely fit around the wheel. He controls the pedals. You guide the direction. By modern standards, this would be called reckless. But in that moment, you didn't feel unsafe. You felt trusted. Back then, safety rules existed, but they weren't enforced by fear. No one was tracking you. No one was checking in. That trust followed you everywhere. Your mother parked the car outside the shops and told you to wait. She'd be gone 5 minutes. 5 turned into 10. 10 turned into 20. You watched strangers pass by, breathing fog onto the glass, drawing shapes in the condensation. Today, safety means location sharing and read receipts. But you learned something different. You learned that safety wasn't an alert on a screen. It was a feeling inside your body. That's where your internal compass was built, alone, in quiet moments, with no distractions. Once you had that compass, the neighborhood became your territory. The woods at the end of the street, the empty lot behind the shops. Adults called them dangerous. You called them freedom. You spent hours building forts from whatever you could find. Discarded wood, old carpet, milk crates borrowed and never returned. There were no instructions, no adults to step in. You learned through trial and error. If the roof leaked, you figured out why. If a board snapped, you adjusted. You came home dirty, scraped, and tired, but proud. You weren't just playing. You were learning how the world works. Conflict worked the same way. If you couldn't get along, the game ended. There was no referee. You learned how to negotiate, how to compromise, and how to stand your ground. Then there was the bike. Your bike wasn't a toy. It was freedom on wheels. You customized it. You memorized shortcuts. You learned speed and risk the hard way. When you crashed, you didn't dramatize it. You limped home. Most of the time, the response was simple. You're fine. Clean it and go back outside. That wasn't cruelty. It was conditioning. You learned the difference between pain and danger. And that lesson stayed with you. You also grew up in a world where things weren't sealed shut. When something broke, you didn't replace it. You opened it. You fixed chains. You held flashlights. You learned how machines worked because you were expected to. This created a quiet confidence. Not loud, not performative, just the belief that problems could be solved. School reinforced it. No undo button, no instant answers. If you wanted to know something, you had to remember it. Focus wasn't optional. Attention wasn't constantly interrupted. You trained your mind for depth in a world that now rewards speed. Social life happened in real spaces. The mall wasn't just a place to shop. It was where you learned how to exist among people. You read faces. You sensed danger. You learned where you belonged. Identity wasn't curated. It was lived. Mistakes weren't archived forever. They disappeared. And that freedom mattered. So when Generation X looks at the modern world and feels slightly out of place, it's not because they're outdated. It's because they were shaped differently. They learned independence without supervision, confidence without applause, and identity without an audience. That quiet strength, built before. Everything was tracked, recorded, and optimized, is becoming rare. Not obsolete. Rare.